Most of us imagine the ocean as something familiar, a place we've seen in videos, on vacations, or in photographs so many times that it feels almost ordinary. But the truth is far stranger. The ocean is not simply a body of water. It is the largest, oldest, and least understood environment on Earth. An alien world that hides more mysteries than the surface of the moon. Today, in part 1, we begin a journey into 100 unknown, unsolved, and genuinely baffling ocean facts that modern science still can't fully explain. And the deeper we go, the more unsettling these mysteries become, because every discovery in the ocean seems to reveal 2 new questions. Let's begin with the first fact, one that sets the tone for everything that follows. Fact 1, the ocean's true depth is still unknown. It might surprise you, but even with satellites, sonar mapping, deep-sea submersibles, and decades of exploration, we still do not know the exact maximum depth of the ocean. On paper, the deepest point is the Challenger Deep in the Mariana Trench, roughly 10,984 meters, but that number is not stable. Depending on the measurement method, the equipment used, and even the time of year, the recorded depth changes by tens, sometimes hundreds of meters. Scientists believe this area is constantly shifting due to tectonic flexing, meaning the seafloor here might be sinking, rising, or reshaping itself in real time. And here's the unsettling part. There are multiple trenches deeper than we once thought, including some in the Southern Ocean that we have barely begun to survey. These could easily contain hidden depressions deeper than anything currently documented. The truth? We don't know. And that uncertainty is enormous, because the ocean hides its secrets with pressure so intense that almost no craft can survive long enough to map it properly. Imagine that, in an age where we can photograph galaxies millions of light years away. We cannot measure the deepest point on our own planet. Fact 2. The ocean has layers we don't understand. We often picture the ocean as one continuous body of water, but it isn't. It's layered like the atmosphere, except the ocean's layers are far stranger and far more hostile. The deepest and most mysterious layer is something scientists call the Hadal Zone, named after Hades, the underworld. Fitting, because very little light, heat, or oxygen reaches it. Species here experience pressures equal to having a small car pressing on every square inch of their bodies, but that's not the strange part. The strange part is that Hadal water behaves differently, almost like a separate substance. It moves with its own circulation, forms isolated pockets that do not mix with the rest of the ocean, and even carries chemical signatures completely distinct from the layers above it. It's as if the Hadal Zone is an entirely different ocean, hidden inside the first. Some researchers propose that life forms in these isolated pockets may have evolved apart from the rest of Earth, biological time capsules, unchanged for millions of years. Others believe these zones may hide extremophils unlike anything we've seen, organisms better suited to alien planets than to Earth. For now, these are only theories, because very few missions have ever reached these depths. Fact 3. Something is sounding. Back from the abyss. One of the most unsettling mysteries in ocean science began with a sound. In 1997, hydrophones picked up a powerful, ultra-low frequency noise from somewhere in the southeastern Pacific. It lasted just under a minute, a rising, organic-sounding howl, and it was loud enough to be detected from more than 5,000 kilometers away. It was named the Bloop. At first, scientists assumed it had to be artificial. No animal capable of producing a sound that loud had ever been recorded. Even the largest whales produce calls far weaker. Then came the unexpected twist. The acoustic signature of the Bloop looked biological. For years, theories exploded across scientific circles. Was it a massive unknown creature? A shifting continental shelf? A deep-sea resonance event? To this day, the Bloop remains partially unresolved, with explanations leaning toward natural icequake activity, but never fully aligning with the audio structure recorded. And here's the eerie part. The Bloop wasn't the only signal. Several unexplained underwater sounds, with unique names like Upsweep, Julia, and Train, have been recorded since. All powerful, all strange, all lacking a definitive explanation. Every time the ocean sounds back at us, we realize how little we understand about what lives, moves, or shifts beneath. Fact 4. We only know 5% of the ocean floor. This is the fact people quote often, but rarely understand the magnitude of. 95% of the Earth's seafloor has never been seen by human eyes, not through cameras, not through submarines, not even through high-resolution mapping. Satellites only approximate depth through gravity distortions. Sonar mapping is slow, expensive, and limited. The deepest areas are so inaccessible that exploration is nearly impossible. This means that entire mountains, valleys, caves, volcanoes, and potentially whole ecosystems remain completely unknown. Some scientists even estimate there could be over 1 million undiscovered species in the ocean, and they say that number might be conservative. Let that sink in. We know more about Mars than about the terrain under our own oceans. Part 1. Conclusion. These first 4 facts barely scratch the surface of the ocean's unknowns, but they lay the foundation. The deeper you look, the more uncertain everything becomes. In the next part, we will explore alien-like organisms, impossible ecosystems, unexplained anomalies, and the strange lights that appear where no light should exist. If you're ready for part 2, say the word, and I'll continue the journey into the ocean's darkest, most mysterious depths. Part 2, the Whispering Depths. If part 1 introduced the ocean as a place of mysteries, then part 2 takes us deeper into the strange, almost alien world beneath the first thin veil of sunlight. A region where life changes shape, where physics feel different, and where the ocean begins to behave as if it were a thinking organism. Tonight we continue our quiet descent. Fact 6. The ocean has a shadow zone that swallows sound. There is a layer in the ocean where sound, instead of travelling, simply disappears. Scientists call it the sound shadow zone, a region where water pressure and temperature combine in a way that bends sound waves away, trapping them above or below the layer. Warships rely on this phenomenon to hide. Whales, on the other hand, seem to navigate around it instinctively, adjusting their calls so they can still be heard by others hundreds of kilometers away. But here's the part we don't fully understand. Some deep-sea sounds originating inside the shadow zone sometimes escape. They rise suddenly without explanation, reaching sensors on the surface. It's as if something down there is capable of manipulating sound or producing it at intensities we still cannot replicate. What creates these pulses, no one knows, but they're detected often enough to suggest the shadow zone isn't truly silent. It's listening. Fact 7. There are midnight mountains taller than the Himalayas. Most people imagine the seafloor as a flat, featureless plain, but beneath the waves are mountain ranges more impressive than anything on land. The mid-ocean ridge, for example, is the longest mountain chain on Earth, more than 65,000 kilometers long. In some places, these underwater peaks rise higher than Everest would if it began on the seafloor. Yet the strange part isn't their height, it's the life that gathers around them. Clusters of creatures appear on the ridges in regular cycles. Not groups driven by migration, but entire ecosystems that emerge, thrive, and disappear like clockwork, for reasons we haven't decoded. Some scientists believe these mountains produce low-frequency vibrations, something like a heartbeat, that calls life toward them. If true, the mountains of the deep aren't just landmarks, they may be living geological metronomes. Fact 8. Under the ocean floor is an entire biosphere. Imagine digging through the seafloor sediment and discovering a world that shouldn't exist, a world of microbes that live without oxygen, sunlight, or traditional food sources, a world so slow-moving that a single cellular cycle can take hundreds of years. Scientists have drilled more than 2 kilometers below the ocean floor and found life still thriving. But the deeper they drill, the stranger the microbes become. Some are chemically unlike anything in the known tree of life. Others appear to switch off, existing in a reversible dormant state that challenges our definitions of biology. The biggest mystery? This underground biosphere appears to be larger than all life in the ocean, above it combined, meaning most of Earth's life is hidden under the ocean floor, silently waiting in the dark. Fact 9. There are entire rivers and lakes under the sea. Picture this: divers swimming above a river that flows along the seafloor, complete with shorelines, waterfalls, and swirling currents, but made of water so dense and salty it forms a separate liquid layer. These formations are called brine pools, and they look like scenes from another planet. When marine animals accidentally swim into these underwater lakes, they often don't return. The brine is so salty it becomes toxic, forming a lethal boundary known as the brine waterfall. But here's what puzzles scientists the most. These underwater rivers sometimes produce waves, Not just chemical ripples, but actual waves, as if the brine layer is responding to something unseen. Some researchers think tides affect them, others suspect deep-sea geological activity, but a few have proposed something far stranger, that these lakes might be connected by hidden channels, forming an underground ocean beneath the ocean, a world beneath a world. Fact 10. The ocean has a layer that acts like a mirror. At about 1,000 meters deep lies a surreal boundary called the Deep Scattering Layer. Here, billions of tiny organisms gather so densely that sonar reflects off them like light off a mirror. Submarines hide within this layer. Whales dive into it to confuse predators. Even migrating fish use it as a kind of underwater highway. But what's strange is how the layer moves. Every night it rises, sometimes by hundreds of meters, forming the largest vertical migration of life on Earth, and every morning it sinks again. We know why creatures migrate, to feed at night and hide during the day, but we don't know how they synchronize this on a global scale, or what keeps them bound so tightly together. It behaves less like a swarm of animals, and more like a single living shield that stretches around the entire planet, a biological mirror with a rhythm of its own. Fact 11. The deep holds. Black holes made of water. Not gravitational ones, as with swirling, self-contained ocean eddies that trap anything entering them, from chemicals to drifting life. They behave mathematically like black holes, with stable outer boundaries and inaccessible centers. Satellites can see them from space, ships avoid them, yet life inside these eddies evolves differently, shaped by isolation. Some eddies have remained stable for years, maintaining temperature and salinity unlike the surrounding ocean, miniature universes with their own rules. What drives their formation? Why do some persist while others collapse? For now, they remain swirling enigmas spinning silently across the open sea. Have you ever wondered what the ocean itself is made of? Not the water, but the invisible blueprint holding everything together. Because beneath the waves, there exists a kind of architecture. Riddles carved not from stone, but from pressure, temperature, chemistry, and time. And the more scientists investigate this submerged world, the more they realize the ocean is not just a body of water, it's a labyrinth of unsolved mysteries. So today, in part 3, we dive deeper, not into the creatures, but into the structures of the ocean. The unseen patterns, the bizarre anomalies, the hidden frameworks that make the ocean behave like a living organism with moods, pulses, memories, and secrets. Let's begin. Fact 12. The ocean has underwater rivers that flow beneath the sea. It sounds impossible. Rivers inside an ocean. Yet in multiple regions across the globe, from the Black Sea to Monterey Canyon, scientists have discovered enormous underwater rivers, complete with channels, banks and currents, strong enough to carry sediment the same way a land river does. But the strangest part is these rivers are not made of fresh water. They're heavy, super dense currents of saltier, colder water that sink to the seafloor and begin to flow like a liquid conveyor belt. Some are so powerful they carve canyons deeper than the Grand Canyon. To this day, no one fully understands. Why some underwater rivers form and others don't, how they maintain structure within a fluid environment, or how much influence they have on global climate. They may be one of the most important engines of Earth's heat distribution, yet they remain one of the least studied. Fact 13. Ocean floors that shift overnight. We imagine the seafloor as stable, solid, unchanging. Reality, the ocean floor can shift meters overnight. Deep-sea mapping has recorded sudden landscape changes that appear out of nowhere. Massive ridges rising, plains collapsing, entire trenches shifting sideways. Some events occur without earthquakes or volcanic activity. No known trigger. Marine geologists call them quiet rearrangements. They believe they may be connected to pressure pockets collapsing, ancient sediment layers giving way, or unknown tectonic micromotions. One theory suggests that the weight of the water itself, hundreds of millions of tons, compresses the crust in slow pulses, like the planet is breathing. No one can predict these shifts. No one knows when or where the next one will appear. Fact 13. The thermocline, a temperature wall with a mind of its own. At a certain depth, something incredible happens. You can dive only a few meters down and hit a sudden, razor-sharp wall of cold water, a clear, physical boundary like walking from summer into winter in an instant. This boundary is known as the thermocline. But here's the mystery. The thermocline moves, sometimes slowly, sometimes rapidly, sometimes disappearing entirely in places where it has existed for decades, and scientists still don't understand what controls the thermocline's shape, why its depth can change hundreds of meters in a single season, or whether these shifts are connected to climate cycles humans haven't identified yet. To creatures of the deep, the thermocline is more than a temperature zone. It's a barrier, a shelter, a hunting field, and the gateway between light and darkness. Fact 14. Submarine dunes taller than skyscrapers. Under the desert, dunes of sand shift with the wind. Under the ocean, dunes of sand shift with the water. But the scale is incomparable. Deep-sea dunes can reach heights of 800 meters, taller than the Burj Khalifa, and stretch for dozens of kilometers. They migrate across the seafloor like massive underwater mountains that crawl. Even more bizarre, these dunes form in pitch blackness, where current speeds should be too low to move anything at all. Scientists have measured dunes moving slowly but continuously, as if guided by a hidden rhythm. Some researchers believe internal waves, massive pressure waves inside the ocean, may push the dunes. Others think tectonic micro-vibrations might create subtle shifts. We still don't know the real cause. Fact 15. Underwater lakes with their own shorelines. This is one of the strangest sights a human can witness. Divers in the Gulf of Mexico have filmed lakes sitting at the bottom of the ocean. Lakes with surfaces that shimmer, shorelines that curve and waves that ripple. But these lakes are made of super salty brine, so dense that normal seawater floats above them like a second atmosphere. If you try to swim into a brine lake, you'll bounce off its surface. These underwater lakes host unique ecosystems, behave like separate worlds, and sometimes form waterfalls where brine spills from one basin to another. The origin of many brine lakes remains a mystery. Were they created by ancient evaporated seas? Are they fed by deep earth chemical reservoirs? Or do they form through processes we haven't discovered yet? Every expedition reveals something new and something stranger. Fact 16. Ghost waves that move through solid water. We're used to surface waves, the ones you see at the beach, but the ocean's most powerful waves are actually invisible. They exist at the boundaries of different water layers, massive internal waves taller than skyscrapers. These waves move silently through the deep, sometimes travelling for thousands of kilometres. The bizarre part, they can pass through layers of water without disturbing the surface. Entire underwater ecosystems depend on these ghost waves to transport food and oxygen. Yet, we don't know what triggers them, why their heights fluctuate dramatically, or how they interact with ocean circulation. Some scientists compare them to tectonic plates made of water. Others think they might play a role in regulating global heat distribution. All we know is this: they are everywhere, and we barely understand how they move. Part 4. The Ocean's Hidden Archives. Imagine this for a moment. The ocean is not just a body of water, it is an archive, an ancient library that predates humanity, predates life on land, and quite possibly predates the very conditions that made Earth habitable. And yet, for all the tools, sensors, satellites, and submersibles we've created, we've barely brushed the surface of what lies inside this planetary library. Tonight we turn the page to a new chapter of ocean mysteries, those strange, elegant, and almost unsettling stories that hide in the deep. The ones that scientists record, document, categorize, and still cannot explain. Let's continue. Fact 17. The bioluminescent streets of the sea. At night in some regions, the ocean glows as if galaxies drift beneath the waves. Sailors have reported these glowing expanses for centuries. Milky seas, they called them. Vast glowing plains big enough to be seen from space, some stretching over 16,000 square kilometers. For decades, these sightings were considered sailors' tales, until satellites finally captured them. But here is the mystery. No one knows how billions of tiny microbes coordinate this glow. There's no electrical network, no chemical trigger we understand. And yet the light spreads evenly, perfectly, across impossible distances. Scientists propose a bacterial communication field, but others think something else might be happening, an emergent behaviour, a kind of collective neural network. The ocean doesn't just shine, or it communicates. Fact 18. Deep ocean hurricanes. We know hurricanes on the surface, swirling masses of air, heat and pressure, but the ocean has its own storms. Colossal spinning underwater vortices, some larger than entire countries, roam the deep, unseen by satellites, untouched by weather patterns. These underwater storms are strong enough to alter currents, strip heat from the ocean, and transport entire ecosystems inside their rotating walls. And the mystery, they appear without warning, they vanish without a trace. And sometimes, they move against the known laws of ocean physics. Some scientists suggest unknown energy gradients, others point to tectonic influences, and a few believe these storms might be remnants of a deeper, older climate system, one we've never fully mapped. One thing is certain, the ocean has its own weather, and it is far more unpredictable than anything above it. Fact 19. The Orphan Waves. For centuries, rogue waves, monster walls of water rising out of calm seas, were dismissed as superstition. Sailors described them as liquid cliffs, 20, 25, sometimes 30 meters high, that appeared suddenly and collapsed with unimaginable force. Then, in 1995, instruments recorded the first confirmed rogue wave, the Draupner wave. It was real, and it was massive. Today we know these waves appear all over the world, but the mystery remains: what creates them? Weather does not explain them. Currents alone cannot account for them. Mathematical models fail to predict them. Some researchers believe rogue waves are the ocean's equivalent of black swan events, forming from chaotic interference patterns. Others think they're related to underwater earthquakes or sudden shifts in pressure. But the truth? Science still cannot predict when or where the next giant wave will rise. Fact 20. The Great Abyssal Roar. In the early 1990s, underwater microphones began picking up a strange, low-frequency roaring sound. It was faint, almost like distant thunder, but constant. Some called it the abyssal roar, others the upsweep. Its characteristics: it repeats seasonally. It has no identifiable source. It spans an enormous section of the Pacific, and it has remained unchanged for over 30 years. Volcanoes don't fit the pattern, marine animals don't produce anything like it. Geological processes shouldn't repeat this consistently. The best theories suggest massive underwater chimneys releasing superheated water, but even that fails to explain the cyclical nature of the sound. It is one of the longest-running unidentified noises ever recorded on Earth. The ocean isn't quiet, it is humming, and we still don't know why. Fact 21. The ship graveyard with no ships. In the Indian Ocean, near the Seychelles, sonar scans have discovered dozens of perfectly rectangular depressions on the seafloor, each identical in shape and size to the hull imprint of a large vessel. But here's the strange part. There are no actual shipwrecks there. No debris, no metal, no wood, just impressions, as if ships were pressed into the seafloor and then removed. Geologists argue natural erosion. Oceanographers point to sediment displacement. But the patterns are too perfect, too uniform, too geometrically precise. It looks almost like a ghost fleet passed through and left shadows behind. Part 5. The Invisible Architects of the Sea. 22. The Plankton Paradox. Plankton. The word sounds simple, almost unimpressive, but plankton is the reason you can breathe. Literally, half of all oxygen on Earth is produced by these microscopic drifters. They outperform rainforests, grasslands, and all land vegetation combined. And here's the paradox. Despite their global importance, scientists still don't fully understand how plankton blooms form, collapse, migrate, or respond to temperature changes. Some blooms appear almost overnight. Massive, glowing, galaxy-like clouds stretching across hundreds of miles. Others form rings, spirals, even geometric shapes that shouldn't be physically possible in turbulent water. Satellites capture the aftermath, but not the cause. One theory suggests that plankton can coordinate their growth like a collective organism. Another argues that deep-sea turbulence plants plankton seeds in patterns similar to cosmic dust clouds. Neither theory fully explains the phenomenon. What's clear is this: every breath you take contains a mystery no one has solved. 23. Ghost nets of the microbial world. Imagine an invisible fishing net spanning entire continents. Now imagine that this net is alive. Microbial mats, vast sheet-like communities of bacteria, drift through the ocean like slow, gelatinous continents. Some are barely a millimetre thick, others stretch for miles, and they behave with intention. These bacteria form chemical communication networks, share nutrients, and collectively move as though following a map. But here's the bizarre part. When scientists break a microbial mat apart, the fragments will reassemble themselves, sometimes miles away, into the original shape. How? No one knows. Some researchers suspect these organisms respond to chemical gradients we cannot yet detect. Others believe they navigate using magnetic fields. A few propose an even stranger idea, that the mats behave like a distributed intelligence system, a biological analogue to the internet. Whatever the truth is, these drifting sheets are among the oldest life forms on Earth. They may be primitive, but not simple. 24. The ocean's dark genome. Most people think DNA is well understood, but in the ocean, a genetic shadow world dominates every drop of water. Marine viruses. There are more viruses in the ocean than stars in the observable universe, and yet 90% of their genetic code is completely unknown. Scientists call this the viral dark matter of the sea. These viruses don't behave like typical pathogens. They infect bacteria, plankton, sometimes even fish, but often in ways that benefit the ecosystem. Some viruses help plankton photosynthesize more efficiently. Others boost nutrient cycles. A few even appear to train bacteria to adapt to temperature changes. The strangest part, many have genes that do not exist in any other known life form. Not on land, not in animals, not in plants. They contain instruction sets for proteins no scientist has ever seen before. Are these ancient remnants from Earth's earliest life, or footprints of evolution we have yet to discover? Either answer is startling. 25. The living snowfall. Descend 1,000 feet into the ocean, and you'll witness one of the most beautiful and eerie sights on the planet. Marine snow, a constant snowfall of organic particles drifting downward, tiny corpses, mucus threads, shell fragments, bacterial clumps, all of it glowing softly as bioluminescent microbes feed and flicker. But the mystery is not what marine snow is, it's how it moves. Sometimes the snow falls quickly, sometimes it stalls for days as though suspended by an invisible hand. In some places it travels upward. Yes, upward, as if gravity temporarily loses interest. The cause? Still unknown. Some researchers suspect microeddies, small circular currents measured in millimeters. Others think magnetic particles within the snow may respond to fluctuations in Earth's magnetic field. But the most intriguing theory suggests something more radical, that microbial communities actively control the speed of the snowfall, regulating the deep ocean's food supply like farmers tending a crop. It sounds impossible, but the data keeps pointing in that direction. 26. The hidden lungs of the ocean. We often imagine the ocean as a giant blue uniform expanse, but it breathes through thousands of invisible chimneys, zones where water exchanges gases with the atmosphere in ways scientists still cannot fully model. Some of these regions release vast amounts of carbon dioxide. The mystery is this: the locations of these breathing zones shift unpredictably. One month, an area the size of Portugal acts as a massive carbon sink. The next month, it becomes a carbon source. The ocean's respiratory system seems to flicker like a heartbeat, pulsing, reversing, stabilizing, then reshaping itself again. Researchers believe these shifts may be controlled by deep-sea turbulence, plankton population changes, or seasonal wind patterns. But no single explanation fits. The ocean is breathing. We just don't understand the rhythm. Part 6. The Abyssal Mysteries. The deeper we sink into the ocean, the less the rules of our world seem to apply. Down past the sunlight zones, past the thermal layers, past even the quiet plains of the abyss, we reach a place where science itself begins to sound uncertain, because so much of what happens here simply shouldn't be possible, and yet, here it is. Tonight, we continue our descent into unknown facts about the ocean, facts that challenge physics, biology, and imagination alike. Settle in, slow your breathing, and let's drift deeper. Fact 27. The ghost thermocline that moves like a living thing. There's a strange phenomenon reported by deep-sea monitoring stations, a massive temperature boundary that appears and disappears as if it's alive. Normally thermoclines, layers where water temperature changes rapidly, are stable, predictable, unmoving. But the ocean has an exception scientists still can't explain. Roughly once every few months, deep sensors detect a moving wall of cold water, as tall as skyscrapers, sliding silently through the mid-ocean. It's not a current, not a whirl, not a mass of migrating water. It moves too evenly, too sharply defined, and it doesn't behave like any known hydrodynamic structure. One oceanographer described it as a ghost boundary, like the ocean briefly growing a new skin. Some hypotheses suggest underwater landslides, others propose seismic vibrations, but none explain why the phenomenon appears without earthquakes, without pressure waves, and without any detectable trigger. To this day, the ghost thermocline remains unexplainable. Fact 28. A biological darkness that absorbs light better than black holes. This one sounds exaggerated, but the measurements are real. In certain deep trenches, researchers found organisms coated in pigmentation that absorbs more than 99.9% of incoming light. Even when illuminated with high-intensity beams, they appear not dark, but impossibly void-like. These pigments outperform the blackest substances engineered by humans. Vanta Black? Deep-sea biology laughs at it. This suggests evolution down here operates under rules we do not share. These creatures exist in an environment where hiding from predators is not just useful, it's essential. And so, evolution created what amounts to a living biological event horizon. The strangest part: scientists can't replicate the pigment outside of the organism. It breaks down instantly, as if it knows it has been removed from pressure. Fact 29. The underwater desert where nothing should survive, and yet it does. There's a region on the seafloor so barren, so chemically dead, that it makes the Sahara look fertile. No nutrients, no currents, no sunlight, no vents, nothing. Yet somehow, life exists there. Researchers deploying submersibles found tiny colonies of microbial mats clinging to smooth basalt. These organisms survive without sunlight, without chemicals, and without any known energy source. When samples were taken, scientists realized something shocking. The microbes weren't metabolizing anything. They were barely alive, operating at a cellular snail pace, replicating perhaps once every 1,000 years. A form of life existing in a state between living and non-living, simply enduring because nothing disrupts it. This is one of the only known ecosystems where biology appears to be hibernating indefinitely. We don't know how they survive, and we don't know how old they are. They could predate humanity, they could predate mammals, they could, for all we know, predate complex life itself. Fact 30. The ocean floor that hums. Humans like to think the Earth is quiet, but the deep seafloor hums constantly with a low, resonant vibration. Not from earthquakes, not from tides, not from tectonic movement. This hum sits at a frequency no natural ocean process should produce, and it's consistent across the entire planet's ocean floor. Subtle, but measurable. Some propose it may be caused by interactions between waves and continental shelves. Others think it might be microseisms amplified underwater. But the most compelling theory: we simply don't know. This hum is constant, global, and unexplained, an ever-present whisper beneath the world. Fact 31. The organism that cheats death. Deep near the Tonga Trench, researchers discovered a jelly-like organism capable of doing something no known complex lifeform does: reversing its decay process. Where most organisms die and decompose, these gelatinous beings collapse into a dormant mass, then rebuild themselves cell by cell, regenerating even when severely damaged. Not rejuvenation, not repair, full reconstruction. Even when scientists damage samples beyond recognition, the organism slowly reformed overnight, like a biological reset button. Here's the twist: no DNA replication was detected during the process, meaning it rebuilds without dividing cells. We have no model for this. No species on land performs anything similar. Some call it the closest thing to biological immortality we've ever found, and it lives where sunlight never reaches. Fact 32. The phantom currents that only appear in data, never on sonar. Deep ocean sensors often detect water movement in long straight lines, currents that travel perfectly linear paths for hundreds of kilometers. But when submarines go to investigate, nothing is there. Sonar shows still water, cameras show nothing moving, instruments detect no drift, yet the sensors report uninterrupted, consistent motion. The phenomenon is so precise that researchers call them phantom highways. Some speculate it's a data interpretation error. Others think small-scale density changes may be interfering with measurement devices. But the eerie part: every deep monitoring network ever deployed, Russian, American, European, Japanese, has recorded the same phenomenon. Even when separated by oceans, something in the deep moves, but not in any way we can observe. Part 7. Where the Ocean Keeps Its Secrets. If Part 6 revealed the outer edges of what we think we understand about the ocean, then Part 2 takes us deeper, into a realm where the boundaries of science dissolve and the ocean's true mysteries begin to surface. Out here, beneath crushing pressure and in perpetual darkness, life and physics often refuse to follow rules we believe are absolute. And that's exactly why this part exists. To explore the anomalies that persist even after decades of research, the puzzles that keep oceanographers awake at night, and the eerie phenomena that hint at an ocean far stranger than we're ready to accept. Let's descend. 33. The phantom sounds scientists still can't explain. For decades, deep ocean microphones, hydrophones, have picked up sounds that defy identification. Some are mechanical, others biological, and a few, unsettlingly, don't resemble anything known to science. In the 1990s, NOAA captured a sound known simply as the upsweep. It rises and falls in a pattern almost like a siren, but it's not produced by any known creature, geological process, or submarine equipment. Even stranger, its volume peaks during spring and autumn every year, as if some invisible event occurs seasonally in the ocean's deepest trenches. Another mysterious sound, the slowdown, abruptly drops in frequency over minutes, as if an impossibly large creature were exhaling. Researchers proposed ice movement, others suggested volcanic activity, but none of those explanations match the acoustic pattern. It remains an unidentified signal echoing through thousands of miles of water. And then there's the infamous bloop. Although later associated with ice shelf cracking, its magnitude still raises questions. How does ice produce a sound detectable over 3,000 miles away? Why does it mimic organic frequency curves? Why has nothing similar been recorded since? Some scientists dismiss these phenomena as anomalies. Others believe something far larger, far more complex and far more ancient may be moving through the abyss, something that leaves no trace except a low-frequency whisper. 34. The places where gravity misbehaves. Most people think gravity is constant across the planet, but beneath the ocean, it twists, fluctuates, and sometimes breaks intuition entirely. The Indian Ocean geoid low is one of the strangest gravitational anomalies on Earth, a massive region where sea level drops more than 100 meters relative to surrounding ocean. Not because the water is lower, but because gravity itself is weaker there. How does gravity weaken over such a vast area? Some theories suggest a dense, ancient tectonic slab sank into Earth's mantle billions of years ago, pulling mass downward and distorting the gravitational field. Others propose the opposite, that a massive plume of hot material rises beneath the region, pushing crust upward. Neither theory fully explains the pattern, and perhaps the strangest part, the anomaly is growing. Something beneath the ocean, something deep within the planet's hidden interior, is still changing gravity today. And we have no clear idea why. 35. Animals that shouldn't exist. But do. Biologists encounter deep-sea life forms that defy classification. Creatures that glow with unknown chemical compounds, produce electricity in ways no surface organism can, or survive pressures so extreme that their cellular structures should collapse instantly. One example is the ghost fish found in the Mariana Trench, so fragile that it should disintegrate when brought to the surface, yet it thrives under 8 tons of pressure per square inch. Its skin is translucent, its bones nearly gelatinous, its body oddly elongated, as if evolved for an environment where normal physics stops working. Then there are the giant amphipods, deep-sea crustaceans that inexplicably grow to 20 times the size of their shallow water relatives. Growth like this contradicts nearly every biological rule concerning scale, pressure, and available nutrients. Scientists admit they don't know why these species exist the way they do. Something down there is influencing evolution in ways we don't yet understand. Something unique to the deep ocean's alien environment. 36. The hidden rivers under the sea. Most people imagine the ocean as one continuous body of water, but within it are rivers, real rivers, complete with currents, banks, and even waterfalls. These underwater rivers flow along the seafloor, carrying dense water filled with salt or sediment. The Black Sea underwater river is so immense that if it flowed on land, it would be among the world's largest rivers. It has tributaries, it has rapids, It even cuts channels into the seafloor just like a river of fresh water would carve into rock. But the greatest mystery is not that these rivers exist, it's why they form at all, and why some of them seem to remain stable for thousands of years. The physics behind underwater rivers shouldn't work this well, especially at such massive scales. And yet they persist, shaping deep ocean landscapes we've barely mapped. Some researchers believe these rivers may have played crucial roles in ancient climate cycles, transporting heat, nutrients, and even oxygen across entire continents underwater. Others think they may still shape climate today in ways we haven't discovered. 37. The abyssal plains that act like living maps. Abyssal plains, vast flat regions miles beneath the surface, were long assumed to be lifeless deserts. But recent exploration shows something stranger. Their surfaces shift, change, and reshape themselves on global scales. Satellite data reveals patterns on these plains that resemble migration routes, thousands of miles long, recurring every decade. But these aren't created by fish or whales. They're imprinted into sediment itself. Could entire ecosystems be migrating across the seafloor? Or are these patterns signatures of deep ocean currents we've never detected? For now, the plains remain quiet, massive encrypted canvases of the ocean floor, painted with movements we cannot yet interpret. Part 8. The deep that remembers. If the ocean had a memory, it would be older than stone, older than mountains, older than our earliest whispers as a species. And in this chapter of our journey, we descend once more into those silent archives, where time moves differently and where the water itself seems to guard its secrets. Because among the most mysterious aspects of the sea is not simply what lives in it, but how it endures, how it remembers, how it stores, how it changes, and how sometimes it refuses to change at all. Tonight we're exploring phenomena hidden not in the creatures of the deep, but in the deep itself. 38. The pockets of ancient water that shouldn't exist. Most ocean water cycles on timescales of decades to centuries. But researchers have discovered isolated pockets, massive reservoirs, of water that are tens of thousands of years old. Older than written history, older than agriculture, water from a time when entire species roamed the earth that no longer exist. These pockets sit so deep, sealed by pressure and salinity, that they barely mix with the rest of the ocean. What's inside them? We don't fully know. Strangely, some contain microorganisms that don't match any known lineage. Others are nearly sterile, so empty of life that they behave more like liquid fossils. And then there are pockets with chemical ratios that don't match any model of Earth's historic oceans, as if they belong to an environment we can't reconstruct. It raises a question scientists still struggle with. Is the deep ocean storing versions of Earth's past we have no other way to access? Or are these waters relics from a world even older, a planet with oceans that behave differently? We simply don't know. 39. The memory layers of the ocean. As we rise slightly toward the midnight zone, we reach something oceanographers call thermohaline layers, thin, distinct sheets of water stacked like pages in an enormous book. These layers shouldn't exist for as long as they do. Currents should mix them, pressure should blur them, temperature shifts should distort them. But somehow, they remain stable. Inside each layer, temperature, salinity, density, and sometimes even microbial ecosystems are preserved with uncanny precision. It's as if the ocean records snapshots, thin slices of environmental history, layered one on top of another. Some behave like liquid fossils, some like chemical time capsules, some like sealed envelopes from an ancient Earth. Even today, scientists struggle to model how these layers remain intact in a fluid system known for chaos. If the deep ocean is always in motion, then why do some parts never move at all? 40. The unexplained underwater lakes and rivers. With high-resolution submersible footage, we've witnessed something almost impossible to describe. Lakes, inside the ocean. Rivers, running along the seafloor. Waterfalls as cascading from one body of water into another. These aren't illusions, they're brine pools. Hypersaline, hyperdense basins that sit like separate worlds inside the sea. But here's the part that defies logic. Many brine pools reject life, yet others are overflowing with organisms we've never documented anywhere else. Creatures that behave as if they've evolved in total isolation. Some cling to the shores of these underwater lakes like shoreline species. Some dive and resurface as if coming up for air. Some simply drift over the boundary and die instantly. It's as if the brine pools form chemical planets within the ocean, microbiospheres with their own rules, but the mystery goes deeper. Sonar scans have revealed rivers flowing into brine pools from beneath the seafloor, underground currents running through rock and salt as if the ocean itself had internal plumbing. Where are those currents coming from? Why do they run warm in places where no volcanic activity is detected? And why do some of them stop and start on a schedule, as if responding to a hidden tide? We still have no answers. 41. The mud that behaves like a living system. At certain deep-sea sediments, scientists pushed a sensor into the mud, and something pushed back. Not a creature, something else. Layers of deep ocean mud have been described as biologically reactive, meaning they respond to stimuli in ways no inorganic substance should. Some sediments generate electrical currents, others pulse with chemical waves, others behave like extremely slow-reacting neural systems. The mud communicates, not metaphorically, literally. Electrical signals pass through it. Chemical gradients organize spontaneously. Energy distributes itself in patterns resembling metabolism. Life? Not life. Something in between. Some researchers suggest these sediments may represent a protobiological system, matter on the edge of being alive. If true, it would mean the ocean floor is not simply the home of a life, but the birthplace of it. 42. The unexplained heat zones of the abyss. Last, we reach a phenomenon that continues to trouble oceanographers. Unexpected thermal plumes, pockets of warm water rising from seafloor regions with no volcanic activity, no tectonic spreading, and no hydrothermal vents. The ocean floor there is geologically silent, and yet the water heats. Some plumes come and go, appearing in cycles. Some pulse. Some travel horizontally for kilometers before disappearing. Hypotheses range from trapped geothermal pockets to unknown chemical reactions, but none fully explain the behavior. These plumes could rewrite our understanding of how energy moves inside the Earth, and perhaps more disturbingly, they could reveal hidden activity beneath the crust that no instrument has ever detected. Part 9. Continued script on unknown facts about the ocean. When we talk about the ocean, we tend to imagine something vast, beautiful and serene. But the deeper you go, the more the ocean stops behaving like a familiar part of Earth, and starts acting like an alien world with its own rules, its own physics, and its own secrets. And some of those secrets still make scientists uncomfortable, because they simply can't be explained. Let's dive into the next series of ocean facts that remain unsolved, unsettling, and absolutely fascinating. Fact 43. The pressure that should crush everything, but doesn't. At the bottom of the Mariana Trench, the pressure reaches over 8 tons per square inch, the equivalent of having an entire building sitting on your thumbnail. By all known physics, biological cells should collapse instantly, lipid membranes should shatter, proteins should denature, and yet, creatures live there, comfortably. Giant amphipods, translucent sea cucumbers, strange snailfish, they thrive in conditions that would liquefy human bones. The mystery is not that life survives, but how? Scientists discovered that deep-sea species produce special molecules called piezolites, which protect proteins from collapsing. But that alone isn't enough to explain the whole picture. Some organisms show metabolic processes that shouldn't function at these pressures at all, not even with piezolites. One theory suggests that these organisms may rely on fundamentally different internal chemistry, something Earth biology hasn't fully catalogued yet. Another theory goes even further, that deep ocean life may be the closest example we have to what life on icy moons like Europa or Enceladus could look like. And if that's true, the deep sea may not just be a mystery, it may be a blueprint. Fact 44. The ocean's shadow zones, where sound disappears. Sound usually travels extremely well underwater. Whales communicate over hundreds of miles, submarines get detected by acoustic arrays, and even small disturbances can be picked up by sensitive microphones. But then there are the shadow zones. These are mysterious pockets, sometimes stretching for dozens of kilometers, where sound doesn't just weaken, it vanishes. Completely. Hydrophones detect nothing. Sonar pings don't return. Ships passing overhead go silent. Scientists still don't know the exact mechanism behind these zones, but one hypothesis is that unique temperature gradients bend sound waves in such a way that they spiral endlessly without ever reaching a receiver. Another theory proposes microlayers of water, like invisible sheets, created by ancient underwater landslides or slow-moving currents. These layers disrupt acoustics like a lens that scatters light. And then there's the unsettling possibility that some of these zones are created by something moving, something large enough to manipulate the thermal structure of water. But that's a topic oceanographers prefer not to discuss publicly. Fact 45. The lights that shouldn't exist. Every so often, ships crossing specific parts of the ocean report a haunting phenomenon. The water ahead of them begins to glow, not like bioluminescent plankton which flicker and swirl, but a vast uniform field of white light stretching as far as the horizon. These are called milky seas. Only a handful of satellite images have ever captured them. Some of these glowing areas reach the size of entire countries. And the strangest part? They glow steadily, not in reaction to movement, as normal bioluminescence does. For decades, scientists thought these seas were caused by massive blooms of glowing bacteria. But when samples were taken, the bacteria displayed nowhere near enough brightness to explain the phenomenon. Others believe it could involve some kind of chemical reaction triggered by deep-sea hydrothermal vents. But there is one more theory, quietly discussed but rarely published, that milky seas might not be a biological phenomenon at all, but a physical one, something related to deep-sea electromagnetic activity, undersea lightning in a sense. An effect we've observed on Jupiter's oceans, but never conclusively proven on Earth. Until we can study a Milky Sea in real time, it remains one of the ocean's most luminous mysteries. Fact 46. The objects moving against the current. Deep-sea tracking arrays sometimes detect large masses drifting across the seafloor. Most of the time, these are landslides, sediment clouds, or migrating animal groups. But sometimes, the movement is different. Sometimes the object moves steadily for miles, stops abruptly, reverses direction, and accelerates in ways that no known ocean current can explain. The military has captured some of these anomalies but keeps the data classified. Civilian researchers saw similar events during long-term monitoring of abyssal plains. But when asked for explanations, the word they used was unresolved. There are three possibilities: unknown deep-sea species larger than any previously recorded, loose equipment or containers drifting unpredictably, something geological, like shifting tectonic plates or methane geysers. But none of these perfectly match the movement profiles. Whatever is down there, it doesn't behave like anything we've mapped. And maybe that's why the deep ocean is still less explored than the surface of Mars. Part 10. The depths that rewrite reality. When we imagine the deep ocean, most people picture darkness, silence, and emptiness. But the deeper we go, the more the ocean begins to resemble another universe, one governed by rules that barely overlap with the world we know above. A universe where pressure crushes steel, where time seems to stretch, where light behaves differently, and where life evolves in ways so radically foreign that even our best scientific models fail to predict them. This part of the script takes us into that other universe, into mysteries that modern oceanography still struggles to explain. Some of these mysteries are geological, some biological, and some almost philosophical. But all of them share a single message. The deeper we look, the stranger the ocean becomes. 47. The places where gravity seems wrong. Far below the surface, in regions around the Indian Ocean and parts of the South Pacific, oceanographers have discovered anomalies, zones where gravitational measurements don't match the expected values. Ships passing over these regions slightly speed up or slow down. Submarines must recalibrate their instruments. Satellite altimetry shows depressions in sea level that shouldn't exist. Scientists suspect these anomalies might come from enormous buried continental fragments, dense mantle plumes, or mineral-heavy formations beneath the seabed. But no one has mapped them fully. The pressure and depth make seismic imaging unreliable. The models keep failing. Some researchers even think these gravitational distortions influence local currents, creating microgyres that have never been properly measured. Currents that may trap life, circulate nutrients for centuries, or shape ecosystems that exist nowhere else on the planet. But until we can map the deep mantle beneath the oceans with precision, these gravity shadows remain unexplained. 48. The underwater storms that shouldn't exist. We expect storms above the ocean, but not below it. And yet, at extreme depths, scientists have recorded colossal underwater storm systems tens of kilometers wide. They're not made of wind, of course. They're made of swirling layers of water, rotating like atmospheric cyclones, with powerful vertical columns that can lift sediments the size of boulders. But here's the strange part. These underwater storms form in places with no major surface disturbances, no hurricanes above, no seismic activity below, no thermal flux that could trigger instability. They appear out of nowhere, spin for weeks or months, then collapse. We don't know what drives them. Are they triggered by gravitational anomalies, by the breakup of deep boundary currents, by unseen geological activity? Or are we missing something fundamental about how deep water masses behave under extreme pressure? 49. The living lakes at the bottom of the sea. Imagine descending thousands of meters, reaching the sea floor and finding a lake. A perfectly formed shoreline, waves, ripples, even what appear to be tiny waterfalls spilling over edges of underwater cliffs. Only this lake is made of super dense brine, salt concentration so high that the surrounding seawater cannot mix with it. The result? A lake beneath the ocean, with its own boundaries, its own chemistry, and in some cases, its own ecosystem. But here's what scientists still can't explain. Some brine lakes appear warm. Some generate methane bubbles at consistent intervals, like a heartbeat. Some contain organisms that shouldn't be able to metabolize anything in such toxic conditions. And some lakes expand and shrink, as if something is feeding them from below. Theories range from sub-seafloor hydrothermal systems to microbial mats altering chemistry, but none of them fully match the observations. It's as if these lakes are alive in their own geological way, growing, breathing, changing. 50. The anomalous lights that appear with no biological source. Bioluminescence is common in the ocean. But what about light with no biological origin? In 2013, 2017, and again in 2022, deep-sea missions captured unexplained bursts of light. Fleeting pulses, flashes, or glows that appeared at depths far beyond where sunlight can penetrate. These weren't organisms, they weren't chemical reactions known to happen in water. And they weren't equipment malfunctions. Some pulses travelled horizontally, almost like signals. Others expanded outward like shockwaves. A few followed submersibles at a distance, maintaining speed but not interacting. One hypothesis is piezoelectric emissions from shifting minerals, deep-sea earthquakes creating flashes at atomic levels. Another is chemiluminescent reactions triggered by ancient hydrocarbon reservoirs. Another suggests that charged particles from cosmic sources may produce Cherenkov-like effects. But none of these theories fully explain the patterns, the timing, or the scale. Something deep in the ocean emits light in ways we still cannot decode. Now I want to thank you for watching, and I encourage you to subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss any more facts about our vast world.